What would you do if the love of your life was torn away in broad daylight? Quang, a brilliant young businessman, is kidnapped without a trace, leaving Linda, his devoted lover, caught between despair and determination. With the help of an undercover agent, she dives into the dangerous underworld, chasing shadows, dodging death, and clinging to the faint sound of Quang's voice behind guarded walls. But every attempt to save him ends in heartbreak. He is still out of reach. Will love conquer fear, or will darkness prevail? Subscribe now and follow this gripping journey to uncover the truth. The bustling streets of the city were filled with the usual noise of traffic and chatter, but that ordinary afternoon was about to shatter Linda's world forever. Quang, a promising young businessman admired for his sharp mind and unyielding determination, had just left his office to meet Linda for lunch. They had planned a quiet meal together, a brief escape from the chaos of their busy lives. Linda still remembered his last message before everything spiraled into darkness. "I'll be there in 15 minutes. Can't wait to see you." She never imagined those words would become an echo haunting her heart. Minutes later, Quang vanished without a trace. Witnesses would later recall the screech of tires, the muffled sound of a struggle, and a black van disappearing into the traffic. To Linda, however, it felt as though the earth had swallowed the man she loved whole. The news hit her like a thunderclap. One moment she was waiting at the small cafe they often visited, glancing at her phone every few seconds, and the next, panic rose in her chest when she realized Quang was far later than usual. When her calls went unanswered, an icy dread gripped her. By the time she heard whispers spreading through the city about a possible abduction, Linda was already in tears, her hands trembling as she dialed number after number, desperate for answers. She rushed to the police station, her voice cracking as she reported the disappearance, but the authorities could only offer procedural reassurances. "We'll investigate," they said. Yet the formality in their tone pierced her heart. They didn't understand who Quang was to her. He wasn't just another case file, he was her love, her future, the anchor of her world. That night, the first message arrived on her phone. The screen lit up with an anonymous number, and the words carved fear into her very soul. "We have him. Don't call the police if you want him alive." No demands, no location, just a threat that froze her blood. Linda's hands shook violently as she clutched the device, staring at the message until her tears blurred the letters. Her mind was a storm of confusion. Who would want to harm Quang? Was this about business rivalries, hidden grudges, or something darker? She knew his world was full of competition and enemies who envied his success, but the thought that someone would dare to kidnap him was almost too much to bear. Sleep became impossible. Every creak of the floorboards, every sound from the street outside sent chills racing down her spine. Linda sat by the window of her apartment, staring into the city's neon lights, praying for Quang's safety. She whispered his name like a mantra, as though the sound of it could somehow protect him. Her heart ached with guilt. Had she done enough to keep him safe, to warn him of the dangers he faced? Or had she been too caught up in the simplicity of their love to notice the shadows lurking at the edges of his world? Days blurred into one another, and the police investigation dragged on with no concrete leads. That was when Linda first heard whispers of a man, a shadowy figure working undercover within the city's criminal underworld. He wasn't officially part of the police, but his reputation for infiltrating dangerous networks was whispered like a secret between those who had nowhere else to turn. Desperate, Linda sought him out, her heart pounding as she begged for help. "Please," she said, her voice breaking, "they have Quang. He's everything to me. I don't care what it takes, I just need him back alive." The man studied her in silence, his eyes sharp yet strangely empathetic. Finally, he nodded, but his words were grave. "If I do this, you must understand, it won't be easy. The people who took him are ruthless. You'll be walking into a storm." Linda's answer came without hesitation. "Then I'll walk into it," she whispered. For her, there was no other choice. She would face the storm, no matter how violent, if it meant bringing Quang back. The undercover agent wasted no time. Once Linda made her desperate plea, he began sketching out a plan, a dangerous, razor-thin path that could lead them closer to Quang's captors or cost them both their lives. His name remained a mystery, he never offered it, and Linda didn't ask. All she knew was that he moved with the kind of precision that only came from years of surviving in the shadows. To slip inside the organization that had taken Quang, he would have to disguise himself as a fugitive, a man with nowhere left to run, willing to do anything for protection and profit. It was a role he had played before, but this time there was more at stake than his own life. Now, Linda was involved, and her very presence in this dangerous world raised the stakes to unbearable heights. The first night of their operation tested Linda's courage. Disguised in a dark coat and worn scarf, she followed the agent through twisting alleys where the city's neon lights gave way to dim, menacing shadows. Her heart pounded in her chest, her mind screaming at her to turn back. But every time doubt threatened to consume her, she pictured Quang's face, his gentle smile, his promises of a future together, and she pressed forward. The agent glanced at her once, his expression unreadable, but in his eyes there was a flicker of reluctant respect. She wasn't backing down. Their cover story was simple but believable. Linda would pose as the agent's contact, a woman with connections to stolen money, seeking refuge among criminals who valued loyalty only as long as it paid. To Linda, every word felt like a lie carved out of her soul, but she clung to the role with quiet determination. The deeper they went, the more dangerous it became. Men with cold eyes and suspicious glares tested their story with questions that dripped with hidden threats. One wrong answer, one slip of the tongue, and both of them would be exposed. Linda forced herself to steady her voice, recalling every detail the agent had drilled into her before they set out. By some miracle, or perhaps by the sheer strength of her will, they passed the first test. But infiltration was only the beginning. Once accepted into the fringes of the network, the chase began. The organization was like a phantom, moving constantly, leaving no trail easy to follow. One night, they found themselves sprinting through crowded markets as unseen pursuers closed in from the shadows. Another night, they narrowly escaped a trap set in an abandoned warehouse, bullets ricocheting off steel beams as Linda's breath caught in her throat. Every step of the way, the danger pressed closer, yet so too did the fragments of truth. They discovered coded messages, whispers of a hidden compound where captives were held. Linda clung to each shred of information like a lifeline, her belief growing that Quang was still alive, still waiting for her to find him. The agent warned her often, "This is no place for you. You could die here." But Linda's answer never changed. "If Quang is there, then so am I." Her love was her armor, her shield against the terror that clawed at her heart. Even as exhaustion and fear gnawed at her, she pressed forward, her resolve unbreakable. Yet beneath the courage, doubt lingered. There were moments, late at night when the world grew silent, that Linda's strength wavered. What if they were too late? What if Quang was already gone, lost to her forever? She buried those thoughts quickly, but they clawed at her when she least expected, threatening to unravel the fragile hope that kept her alive. The agent, perhaps sensing her turmoil, offered no comfort, only grim determination. "Hope is dangerous," he told her once. "But sometimes, it's the only weapon we have." And so the chase continued, through smoke-filled rooms and rain-slick alleys, across borders marked only by fear and silence. Each encounter with the network left Linda shaken but stronger, her love for Quang burning brighter against the encroaching darkness. With every heartbeat, with every step into danger, she whispered a silent promise to him, "Hold on. I'm coming." The trail of clues eventually led Linda and the undercover agent far from the city's lights, into the desolate outskirts where crumbling warehouses lined the horizon like grave markers of forgotten lives. The air smelled of rust and damp earth, and the silence was heavy, almost suffocating. The agent raised his hand, signaling Linda to stop. "This is it," he whispered. Ahead, a sprawling compound loomed in the shadows, surrounded by high fences and guarded by men who moved with the precision of predators. Linda's heart clenched. She could feel it in her bones, Quang was here. Somewhere behind those walls, he was alive. They watched from the cover of darkness, every detail registering like a cruel puzzle. Guards with rifles patrolled in shifts, surveillance cameras swept across the perimeter, and the faint hum of generators vibrated through the air. Breaking in would be close to impossible, even for the agent. For Linda, the sight was both a beacon of hope and a dagger of despair. She had come so far, risked everything, and now the reality of their situation crushed down on her shoulders. She wasn't trained for this. She wasn't a fighter or a spy. She was just a woman in love, armed only with her determination. As the hours dragged on, they studied patterns and searched for weaknesses. Finally, under the cover of night, they tried to move closer. Every step was deliberate, every breath shallow. Linda's hands trembled as she clung to the shadows, her mind replaying memories of Quang, the sound of his laughter, the warmth of his hand in hers, the future they had dreamed together. Each thought steeled her resolve. She would not leave without him. And then it happened. As they crept nearer to the warehouse, Linda froze. A faint sound reached her ears, muffled but unmistakable. It was a voice weak, strained, but achingly familiar. Linda, the name floated to her like a ghost in the dark. Her heart stopped. Tears welled in her eyes, blurring her vision. It was Quang. He was alive. He was calling for her. "Did you hear that?" she whispered, clutching the agent's arm. But the agent's face was grim. "You can't go rushing in," he warned. "That's what they want. They'll kill him if we make a wrong move." Linda's chest heaved with frustration. Every fiber of her being screamed to run, to break down the doors and pull Quang into her arms. She wanted to shout his name, to let him know she was there, that she hadn't abandoned him. But the reality of their situation shackled her. One reckless step and Quang's life would be over. Her tears fell silently, carving paths down her cheeks as she bit her lip hard enough to draw blood. They tried twice that night to find a way in, but every attempt was met with failure. Hidden tripwires, silent alarms, and the constant movement of guards forced them back each time. Each failure was a knife twisting deeper into Linda's heart. She could still hear Quang's voice echoing in her mind, fragile but alive, and every moment they hesitated felt like a betrayal. When dawn broke, the compound was still standing, impregnable as ever. Exhausted, Linda collapsed against a wall, her body trembling from fear and anguish. The agent crouched beside her, his voice low but firm. "We'll find another way. We're not done." But Linda barely heard him. All she could think of was Quang, so close she could almost touch him, yet separated by walls of steel, guards, and the cruel hands of fate. She pressed her palms together, whispering a promise to the rising sun, "Hold on, Quang. I swear to you, I won't stop. No matter how long it takes, no matter what I have to face, I'll bring you back." But as the compound faded into the distance behind them, one thing became clear: this battle was far from over. The storm had only begun, and Linda was about to be tested in ways she could never imagine.